Authorities have released new details about the horrific Manoa murders, including a possible motive. We want to warn you, a lot of what you're about to hear is disturbing.
All 4 victims had defensive wounds on their hands and wrists. It is very probable that the life-threatening injuries that they sustained killed them within a few hours of the incident.
He was a father and a husband, a man meant to love and care for his family. But what happens when the very person entrusted with their protection becomes the one who destroys them? This is the tragic story of Paris Oda, a seemingly peaceful chiropractor living in a quiet Honolulu neighborhood, until something inside him snapped, leading to one of the most horrific massacres the city had ever seen. Now remembered as the second deadliest massacre in Honolulu's history. What could drive a loving father, once the picture of devotion, to commit such an unimaginable act? Stay with us as we explore the darkness behind a tragedy that shocked an entire community. But before we begin, I want to thank you, my amazing viewers and subscribers, for your support through your likes, shares, and comments. Your engagements help make these stories more meaningful. If you're new here, be sure to hit that subscribe button and join our growing community of true crime enthusiasts. Paris Oda, at 46, was a well-respected chiropractor in Honolulu. He was known for his gentle nature and his meticulous attention to his patients. As a father, he was the kind of man who would wake up early to make breakfast, preparing lunches for his children before they left for school. He doted on his family, giving them all the love and care they could ever ask for. He was the anchor, the rock in his family's life. Naoko Oda, Paris's 48-year-old wife, originally from Japan, was a supportive mother and partner. She helped out at the clinic and was deeply involved in her children's lives. Their marriage, though not without challenges, was built on a foundation of love and mutual respect. Naoko was a mother who always encouraged her children to dream big, to follow their passions, and to never settle for anything less than their best. Together, they had 3 children who made up the heart of the Oda family.
Torres says Sakurako was just like her. She was blossoming into a passionate teen with a bit of sarcasm and a bright future with high school graduation just around the corner.
Sakurako Oda, 17, the eldest daughter, had dreams that extended far beyond the shores of Honolulu. She aspired to become a nurse, passionate about helping others, and had a love for cooking that she shared with her mother. As an ambitious teenager, she was preparing for her high school graduation and was weighing college options both on the mainland and within Hawaii.
He was digging his nose.
Ew! Move your hair! Videos like this of her little brother Orion doing little brother thing.
Orion Oda, 12, their kind-hearted son, was the playful spirit of the family. With a heart full of love and a bright smile, he was adored by everyone who met him. He was the kind of child who spread happiness wherever he went, always looking out for others and making friends effortlessly.
She called her youngest sister Nana spunky, brave, and unapologetic.
Nana Oda, 10, the youngest, was the quiet one but no less important. Shy and reserved, she had a caring nature that made her stand out. She was always the first to help others, offering a kind word or a helping hand to anyone who needed it. Nana may have been shy, but her heart was big, and she brought warmth to those around her. Paris Oda's chiropractic practice was located near Ala Moana Center, the largest and busiest shopping mall in Hawaii. His office was a place where people came for relief and care, trusting him with their health. To many, Paris was more than just a chiropractor. He was a trusted figure in the community, a man who seemed to have everything under control. His practice flourished, and his reputation as a compassionate, skilled professional was well established. It wasn't just his work that spoke to his character. It was the way he lived his life, as a loving father and devoted husband, that made him seem invincible, unshakable. But little did anyone know, the cracks in his world were beginning to form. Beneath the surface, a storm was gathering, one that would soon take everything from him, and from his family. In a neighborhood full of people who knew each other's names and shared their lives, the Oda family was the picture of normalcy. They were the family you would look at and think they have it all together. But, as we'll soon see, even the happiest-looking families can hide the darkest secrets. And when tragedy strikes, it strikes hard, leaving behind a trail of questions with no answers. As we all know, sometimes it's the small things that hint something is wrong, long before the bigger events unfold. For the Oda family, it was the Christmas decorations. In December 2024, for the first time ever, they were missing. No twinkling lights, no festive wreath on the door. A family that always embraced the holiday spirit suddenly had none of it. It was a subtle sign, but it didn't go unnoticed. The thing is, Paris was drowning in debt, and it was only a matter of time before it all came crashing down. His chiropractic practice was in free fall. Paris, once known for his expertise, was now struggling to keep his business afloat. But it didn't stop there. His financial problems went much deeper. He had unpaid taxes, unpaid rent, and the constant pressure of mounting debt was eating away at him.
In March of 2021, the owner of this building on Kaheka Street sued Oda and his company for about $90,000 in unpaid rent and fees going back more than 3 years. Documents show Oda stopped paying rent in December of 2017 on the fourth-floor offices and continued to build debt through the pandemic at about $2,500 a month. The eviction case settled in December 2021 when Oda agreed to pay $57,000.
In fact, by 2023, Paris found himself embroiled in a $90,000 lawsuit over unpaid rent. A state tax lien had been placed on his property, and he'd even taken out a PPP loan to cover wages for his employees. But despite these efforts, his financial situation just kept getting bad. He even turned to driving for Uber to make ends meet, but things were already too bad. The Oda family had been living in a $1.7 million home, a beautiful property in a quiet neighborhood.
Tax records show Oda and his wife Naoka bought their 4-bedroom home on a 7,500-foot lot on Wa'aloa Place for about $1 million in 2013. The city appraisal is almost $1.7 million this year.
However, in an attempt to make ends meet, they were renting out the downstairs unit to another family. Fortunate for them, the tenants had just left for a trip to Japan. If they had been home, things might have turned out very differently. As the pressure continued to mount, Paris started looking for ways out. He tried to sell his Ford truck, along with other personal items, including a treadmill, in a desperate bid to solve his financial problems. In January 2024, he even reached out to a realtor to discuss selling their home. But the clock was ticking, and the sale wasn't going to fix everything. Paris's desperation was evident. In February 2024, he finally confessed to Naoko, his wife, that he had not paid taxes for years. The weight of it all, the mounting debt, the fear of losing everything, was too much for him to bear. He said, in his own words, that he would rather die than face the humiliation of prison. This confession marked the beginning of his emotional breakdown, the turning point where everything started to go out of control. This wasn't just a man in financial trouble anymore. This was a man on the edge, and no one could see it coming. And in a final desperate act, he reached out to Naoko, the woman he loved. He texted her one night with a chilling message: "We need a plan to do it." The "it" he was referring to wasn't just an escape from his overwhelming debts, it was the end of it all. Paris couldn't see any way out of his mounting troubles and believed that if he couldn't provide for his family, no one else could. He felt trapped. He felt like there was no way out, and in that moment of hopelessness, he decided that his family, the ones he loved, could not go on without him. Paris's belief was simple and dark. If he couldn't escape his financial ruin, neither should his family. He was the only one who could care for them, or so he thought. His desire to end it all wasn't just about his own escape. It was about taking his family with him, believing he was sparing them from what he saw as a hopeless future without him. But Naoko, trying desperately to hold on to hope, responded with a different idea. She suggested they move to Japan, a fresh start, away from the financial strain that had consumed their lives. Her parents could help them rebuild. It was a logical suggestion, one that offered a potential way out that didn't involve the unthinkable.
In the middle of February, Paris texted his wife that they needed to plan to do it. He said he could not take it anymore, and he told her that their children needed to come with them because no one could take better care of them than he could. Naoko tried to be optimistic and encouraging with Paris. She suggested that they move to Japan with her parents, but Paris stated that he was done and too tired.
But Paris was too far gone. He wasn't listening to reason anymore. He was emotionally drained, broken by the crushing weight of his debts and the fear of losing everything. Naoko's suggestion fell on deaf ears. Paris was not interested in starting over. He had already made up his mind, and the plan was set. This conversation marked a turning point. After it, Paris only grew more distant and withdrawn. The man who had once been so connected to his family, so devoted, was now slipping away, emotionally unavailable and unreachable. The cracks in the family dynamic deepened, and the once close bond between Paris and Naoko started to fracture. He was no longer the man who made breakfast for his children or offered words of encouragement. Now, he was a stranger to them. But Paris's despair didn't stop at his own suffering. In a chilling twist, he made threats to his family. He threatened to harm them, even suggesting he might burn their house to the ground. These violent threats left Naoko and others around him feeling uneasy and fearful. There was a growing sense of something being dangerously wrong, but was Paris really the good man everyone believed him to be? He had a past that few knew about, one that started to resurface as investigators dug deeper. In 1997, he had committed a crime involving trespassing on private property, a minor offense that had been wiped from his record. Yet it was enough to hint at an undercurrent of anger and discontent that had been bubbling beneath the surface. Then came his attempt to buy a gun. Paris had reached out to someone with a chilling request. He wanted a firearm to carry out his violent plan. But that request was ignored, and it would seem that the lack of a gun didn't stop him from following through with his horrific intentions. Then, in the stillness of the early morning, the nightmare began. 2 a.m. to 2:30 a.m. While the rest of the neighborhood slept peacefully inside the Oda household, a different story was unfolding. Paris, consumed by his inner turmoil and despair, grabbed a kitchen knife and made his way through the house. He began the brutal attack on the very family he once promised to protect: his wife, Naoko, and their 3 children, Sakurako, Orion, and Nana. The events that transpired during those dark, terrifying moments were unimaginable. Paris attacked them with ruthless precision. Sakurako, the oldest, was stabbed in her room. Orion was slain in his bed, and Nana suffered the same fate. Naoko, the loving mother, was also targeted, with wounds covering her body. A tenant renting a room in the Oda house was jolted awake by screams so loud and desperate they shook her to the core. Between 2 a.m. and 2:30 a.m., she heard her neighbors fighting for their lives. Terrified, she locked herself in her room, too scared to move. As the screams grew louder and closer, she saw something that would haunt her forever. Blood, seeping under the door, spreading across the floor like a dark stain. Frozen with fear, she couldn't move. She couldn't open the door. Her only option was to escape. She climbed out the window and, in sheer terror, made her way outside to meet the police. At 8:34 a.m., police were called to the scene after a 911 call from a neighbor who had heard screams coming from the Oda household. Officers rushed to the house, but when they arrived, everything seemed strangely normal. No one answered the door. No signs of struggle, no more screams. Just eerie silence. They knocked, listened, and even asked a neighbor if they had seen or heard anything unusual. The neighbor reported nothing. With no clear cause for concern, the officers left the scene, but only for a short while. At 9:15 a.m., just 45 minutes later, the same 911 caller, the tenant, reached out again. This time, she was standing outside, visibly shaken, her hands trembling, her face pale. She had witnessed something horrifying, something she couldn't even fully comprehend. The police, now understanding the severity of the situation, immediately returned to the home. As the officers made their way into the Oda house, they found Paris's body first. He lay in the hallway covered in blood, with a kitchen knife still clutched in his hand. He had already ended his own life, leaving behind the wreckage of his family. The discovery that followed was just as chilling. Room by room, the officers made their way through the house. In one room, they found Sakurako, lifeless, her body covered in stab wounds. In the next, Orion was found in his bed, his chest pierced by the same knife. Finally, in the master bedroom, they discovered Nana, face down, deeply wounded, and Naoko, her body riddled with stab wounds, as if she had fought with everything she had to protect her children. The autopsy results confirmed the horror that unfolded that night. Naoko and Sakurako died from multiple sharp force injuries, while Orion and Nana suffered fatal stab wounds to their torsos. The most gut-wrenching part of the findings was that the children had tried to fight back. The medical examiner confirmed the presence of defensive wounds on their hands and wrists, indicating their desperate attempts to protect themselves from Paris's attack. The timeline matched the tenant's account exactly. The horror began between 2 and 2:30 a.m. The children, despite their efforts to survive, succumbed to their injuries hours later. The tragic massacre left a community in shock. The Oda family, once seen as the epitome of happiness, now lay destroyed, victims of one man's dark turn and the desperation that pushed him to take everything from the people he was supposed to love the most.
Investigators say based on cell phone data, surveillance videos, and interviews with other family members, financial issues are what led Paris Oda to kill his wife and children before taking his own life. Late last year, police say he told a relative and his wife that it was his responsibility to fix their financial straits, but the situation only became worse. Police say the family did make some changes, but the financial problems continued. Oda's chiropractic business was also suffering, and he took a job as an Uber driver. He also told his wife last month that he had not paid taxes for years. According to investigators, Oda had told some relatives he would rather die than go to jail for not paying taxes. Cell phone records also show he discussed with his wife that he would not only take his own life, but the lives of the rest of his family.
When the news of the Oda family's massacre broke, the Manoa community was in shock. The quiet, safe neighborhood that had once been a haven now felt like a ghost town. Neighbors who had seen the Oda family at their best now found themselves mourning the loss of a family they thought they knew. Flowers, letters, and a pink teddy bear for Nana, the youngest victim, were placed outside the Oda home in a public display of grief. It wasn't just the loss of the family, it was the loss of something much deeper, a sense of trust in the world around them. The community felt like they had lost part of their own family.
Family is so important, and just hearing the story is horrific. Even if we're not from the neighborhood, showing up, paying our respects, and that's what the Aloha spirit is about, trying to care for one another, and that's why we're here.
Throughout the day, friends and classmates of the victims arrive, many overcome by emotions. A former neighbor who did not want to go on camera could barely contain her tears as she recalled watching the children playing and riding their bikes along the street. To the outside world, they seemed like an idyllic family.
They looked like a regular, happy family, and then just hearing what had happened, it's like, what had happened?
Annette Oda, Paris's mother, was left devastated and utterly confused by what had happened. She struggled to process the unimaginable tragedy and the loss of her son. When asked if she had noticed any signs that something was wrong, she declined to comment, unable to reconcile the man she knew with the horrific actions he'd taken. The family was in disbelief, shocked to realize that the life they had all assumed was perfect was anything but. In the wake of this tragedy, a GoFundMe campaign was launched to help cover the funeral expenses for the Oda family. Paris's eldest daughter, Taris Manzano, from a previous relationship, along with her mother, Annalyn, organized the effort. The campaign aimed to raise $100,000, and despite the overwhelming sadness, the community came together to support the Oda family in any way they could. This outpouring of support was a bittersweet reminder of the love the family had once shared, and the heartbreaking loss that had now ripped them apart. As the Oda family's tragedy sent shockwaves through the community, the schools where the children had attended were quick to respond. Iolani School, where Sakurako was a senior, and Sikh's charter school, where Orion had been a student, both provided crisis counseling to help students and faculty cope with the overwhelming grief. Manoa Elementary, where Nana had attended, also offered counseling services to the school community, ensuring that children and staff had a safe space to express their emotions. Britt Young, a therapist who specializes in family trauma, spoke about the importance of age-appropriate conversations when helping children deal with such a profound loss. For younger children, like those in elementary school, feelings of fear and uncertainty could overwhelm them. She emphasized the need for parents to reassure their children, helping them feel safe and secure again. For older children, like teenagers, more open and honest conversations were needed, allowing them to process their feelings and find a way to heal. Britt noted that just being present, listening, and offering comfort could make all the difference during such a traumatic time. As we look back on the tragic events that led to the deaths of Paris Oda and his family, we are left to ask, what drove him to such an unimaginable act? Was it the crushing financial ruin? Was it his desperate belief that he was the only one who could take care of his children? Or was it a complete mental breakdown, where his mind could no longer handle the weight of his fears and failures? The Oda family's loss will forever haunt the community of Manoa. As we reflect on their lives, we can't help but wonder, what could have been done differently? Was there a moment when this tragedy could have been avoided? The questions remain, and the pain lingers as we remember the Oda family, forever lost, forever loved. If this story shook you, there's more on the channel that dives into cases just as haunting. Don't forget to subscribe, hit that like button, and share this video. it helps keep these stories from being forgotten. Thanks for watching.